Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And today is Friday, March 14th, 2025. Some people like to refer to it as Pi Day, 3.14. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. Powerful, effective, and efficient because of the way they work. Accessible because through the tireless efforts of Dr. Michael and Jeannie Rice, these are available absolutely free on the website at whyagain.org. And if you go to that website and click on the two words that say Start Here in the upper left-hand corner, it'll take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Rice's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of the book contains a narrative description and explanation of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. And it's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 20 years to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to turn any negative emotional experience I have into part of the infallible guidance system that each and every one of us has been given. You can also download the actual worksheet process itself. It's a simple PDF file. Click the link, download it, print it off, copy it as often as you'd like, and use it over and over again absolutely free. You can also download a whole host of audio files of shows just like this one from that website where people have been stepped through the worksheet process. And if you choose to listen to them even repeatedly, they can serve as a powerful tutorial for you to help you get maximum benefit from these tools in the shortest amount of time possible. You can also go to your app store and type in the three words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness. If you choose to do that before you're done typing the word forgiveness, you'll see the glowing heart icon. If you tap on that, it will let you download a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet. It contains an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and it contains a copy of the Dragon and Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. And we help people do all of that soon and often, primarily because it tends to improve the quality of people's lives the more they actively apply these tools in their lives. And secondarily, because it tends to prompt comments, questions, answers, and testimonials. If you have any of those to share with us, we'd appreciate you doing so. You can do that by sending me an email at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org. And or you can email Jeannie at jeanie@whyagain.org. That's whyagain.org. And if we get a comment or a question from you, we'll address it on the internet show, and then as time allows, send you a notification about what day and time that occurred, so you can listen back to the archives for your feedback or input. And we greatly appreciate whenever anybody does that, because it makes it infinitely easier for us to live into our intention with this work. The intention we have with this work is to be of service, and it's just so much easier to do when we know how these things are landing for you. If you're listening to us on the internet at live.needle.com/mindshiftersradio, we're glad you're here, glad you're finding this of value, and at the same time, that doesn't allow you to have any input. So if you go to your app store and type in Needle, N-E-D-L, and search for the app, it says Needle AI Tuner for Live Radio. Download that app, open it, sign in, and follow the show. Then every time one of us goes live, you'll get a text message notifying you that the show is in the air, and then you'll have the capacity to either type a comment or tap your phone icon and talk to us directly, voice to voice. So we encourage people to do that because the vast majority of highlight shows, best of shows, have been the result of people just like you calling and asking a question or making a comment or offering a refutation of one of the points we're making. And the more we get questions, the more we get input, the more we have synergistic interaction, the better it is, in our experience, the better it is for everyone involved. So please comment, please ask questions, please let us know how this is landing for you, whether you're sending it through an email or getting on the app and talking to us directly or typing a comment. Today's a Friday, which means last night we had a support group. And in the support group, it was one of those where we didn't listen to or watch a video from somebody else. We just had some discussion, and then I did a worksheet as a presenting a modeling. We had a couple people on who are not very experienced with the worksheet process, and while none of the other group members volunteered to do one, I decided to do one, and I did one on the emotional upset that I experienced, that I generated and then experienced on Tuesday evening. And so, in the course of doing this work, my experience has been that the more worksheets I do, the more it's kind of like a well-practiced behavior. It's like a well-oiled machine. It just starts working better and better. It's like if you buy a new set of speakers, they say, they're going to sound better after they're broken in, after, 100 hours of listening or whatever. And so that's the experience I have. The more I do the worksheet process, the more I practice this experience of being calm and relaxed as I make the overt statements that I cancel my need to be right, and I cancel my need for anyone or anything to change, and I cancel my goals. And so in lieu of anybody typing in a question or raising a hand to talk, I'll present that worksheet as it happened. Susan, are you in the air?
I am, and I pushed the call button, and then you said you're going to do your worksheet. I think you ought to do it, Dr. Tim, and I can ask.
Well, I've done the worksheet, and I'll be ready to read it if you want. What was the question you were going to ask?
Well, this was a big one. My grandson Charlie came home last night and could hardly talk for crying, and he's 19 years old. He told us how horrible his OCD anxiety has been, how it's ruining his life. He can't sleep, he's losing weight, and there are some life situations contributing to this, but basically it's a huge thought disorder thing, but OCD is like a magic word to me. It's like I can't help with OCD. I don't understand it. He himself said his brain is different from other people's brains, and there's no escaping it, and he has become this very devout evangelical Christian to get Jesus's help, and he says Jesus is helping him. And I offered to have him come on the radio show today to do a wake-up sheet with you, and I said I could be on too or not. He doesn't want to do wake-up sheets. I think he thinks that they are the work of the devil on some level. So I was just talking to Michael Rice this morning on a whole other matter, and I asked him if it would be appropriate to do a wake-up sheet as if I am Charlie on the radio show. And he thought it would be, but I'd love to know what you thought and if you'd be willing to do one. And I'm standing in front of my computer ready to print whatever wake-up sheet you recommend if you want to do it.
Well, that's a load.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a load. Well, let me just respond first to this situation where you've got Charlie saying, my brain is different, etc.
Mm-hmm.
What floods into my mind is the orthomolecular targeted nutritional approach that some MDs use, where they do a very thorough assessment of what's happening within an individual's body chemistry. And so they look at, like hair and blood and urine analysis, and they're not just, and sometimes they'll do a stool sample and whatever. They're not just taking a look at a person's diet or what they're ingesting.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking at what's actually getting absorbed
Right.
by the body.
Mm-hmm.
And then they develop a specific targeted nutrient supplemental approach
Mm.
for that individual.
Mm.
So it's not, this is really good for people that are this gender and this age and this weight.
Yeah.
It's specific to the individual.
Right.
And it helps identify where there might be some serious imbalance between different nutrients, different minerals, and the how it affects the hormones in the body,
Mm.
and on and on. So I just wanted to mention that before we move on to
Thanks.
whether or not we do a worksheet. And
Yeah.
I use, these days, because of coronavirus and all those restrictions, more and more people are doing this stuff through video calls. So wherever you are, you can, set up an interview with one of these people. The one that I'm aware of, there are two in this area. One is a Dr. Albert Mensa, and mensamedical.com, MENSAH is their website. But you can be wherever you are and get on a video call, and they'll do the interview, and then they'll say, okay, so go to your local lab or hospital and I'll order these blood test results,
Oh,
or
interesting.
send you the urine sample cup or whatever. And
Yes.
so there's a lot more availability. Now, it isn't usually covered by insurance,
Mm-hmm.
and so, but for a lot of people it's not exorbitant. It might be, $1,000 or $2,000 to get the results, and then once you get your supplements, it's like maybe $100 a month. But for a life-changing potential result, it's, a lot of people find it's quite worth it. So I just thought I
Okay.
would mention that before
That's good.
and then, then I don't have any fantasy that this internet show is reaching thousands of people or even hundreds of people.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, my first thought when you say, if I do a worksheet on the internet show about another family member, my first thought is, well, what about their respect for them and their wishes and their privacy?
Mm-hmm. That's true.
So I'll just leave that hanging for a minute, because that's the first question I had.
Mm-hmm.
Is it, how does that land for you to think in those terms?
Complicated. Yeah.
Well, so while I think it's absolutely a wonderful idea for you to do a worksheet as though you were him,
Hmm.
I'm not sure how that fits with respect for him if you do it on the internet show.
Okay.
So, I'll follow your lead on that. If you say, "Oh, that's fine, he wouldn't care," and or on the other hand, what if he, just think for a minute. What if he found out that you're on an internet show that's, getting recorded and going to be available in archives and talking about him?
Mm. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't do it. I'm kind of rash and loose about things like that. It's good to be reined in.
Well, and at the same time, I think it's absolutely beneficial for you and energetically for your bloodline if you do worksheets, and if you want to do one as though you were him or somebody else, in the privacy of your own family or your own house, I'd say more power to you. I'd support that at every turn. I'd support doing EFT tapping sessions on your own body, visualizing it as though you were tapping for him, because that
Hmm.
kind of borrowing benefits can
Yeah.
happen energetically.
Right. Well, you've touched on something. This is my urgency, and maybe the urgency isn't a good idea because I'm not in a very good mental state. I don't feel very well. I feel badly for him. Stayed up a lot last night thinking about him, wondering how or if we could do something for him or whether he's totally on his own. So maybe even wake up sheets on me and my reaction to him, although that seems very boring. I want to go right to him and fix it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you want to
Okay.
go you want to go fix something that you have no, direct control over. And so,
Right.
what's that about, and where did that come from in you? And that's, you're probably your most um, beneficial worksheets are going to be on stuff like that. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
where in your life did you get pre uh, prepositioned to have this intense focus on things you have no control over, and generate panic about?
Yeah.
Maybe it was early in your life in your single digit years, or maybe it came across in your preteen or teen years, but
Mm-hmm.
uncovering that and unraveling it for yourself is every bit as much a benefit to Charlie and anybody else in your bloodline as it would be to try and specifically find a release or relief or a cure for his obsessive compulsive traits.
If I really believed that, that would be, and maybe I will, it, it isn't a new thought, but I think I've relegated it to second tier effectiveness. And the more effective thing would be to do one as if I were Charlie. That's the second tier. The first tier would be to just get Charlie to do a wake up sheet, but he's not open to that for a lot of different reasons. Um, or the religious reason is the newest reason. He doesn't think this is coming from God. He only will go to Jesus now. So if you want to put on a costume and a beard, yeah, it's just, um, thanks. That helps
Well,
clarify things a little.
let's just take the focus off of him for a minute, since he's not here and he's not asking for help. And let's just take a look at you and what might benefit you to feel less panicked. And there is your own set of worksheets
Yeah.
that you could be doing and probably get significant benefit from your own sense of panic.
Hmm.
Right? There's the
Yeah.
worksheet I would recommend you do is I, Susan, who am love, am feeling panic. I'm feeling terror.
Of seeing him in so much pain and
Well,
so exhausted by it.
right,
Yeah.
and the idea that's generating panic would probably be a thought like he's going to die, or his life is going to be ruined, or he's never
Yeah.
going to get better.
Those are
And
the
when you
thoughts.
put that on a worksheet with that emotion and go through the process, you you take an action, and we know that actions speak louder than words. You take an action that is working to demonstrate to that fearful part of your mind that you really are willing to see what it's hiding from you.
Mm.
Because it's literally the fearful part of your own mind that's generating panic right now. It's nothing about your grandson that's generating panic. It's your thoughts about him, and you're choosing those.
Mm-hmm.
And they're coming from really well practiced thoughts that you're holding, and we call them beliefs sometimes, and
Yeah.
perhaps trauma energy that you downloaded into your own energy system when you were younger. But that's the core of this work, is that this progressive exploration and understanding that that's what creates my emotions, not the
Mm.
outside world. There's this dream of separation. There's this dream of the outside world. There's this dream of this agony that my grandson is going through. And then I put myself through this horrible agony, which in many cases is even more punitive and more painful than what my loved one is going through. Because I'm imagining what it would feel like for me if that was happening. But here's the bottom line is, when you said that, I flashed on a situation that happened a lot of years ago. My son had some legal difficulties, and it just so happened that I brought Dr. Michael Rice into town, and that was coinciding with the end of my son's legal difficulties. So instead of
Mm.
having a continuation, they were going to have this final court case, and he was going to have to make a decision. Right? Does he avoid jail time and have a felony on his record, or do some jail time and have the felonies wiped out, et cetera? And
Mm-hmm.
so in that, as the universe would have it, Dr. Michael Rice was in town. I brought him into town to do a series of workshops, and Dr. Michael Rice said, "Hey, I would be willing to talk to the judge and the prosecutor, the state's attorney, and get them to sentence your son to working at Heartland for
Oh,
the
cool.
summer rather than go to jail."
Mm.
And Michael said, "And all it would take is have him attend the workshops that I'm doing this week, and start doing some worksheets, and then show up down there." And he said, "I've done that for people before." He says, "I'm familiar with the court system in a number of different states." So Michael says, "We can probably make that happen."
Wow.
So here's my son. He's 18 or 19 at the time, and I make the offer to him. I say, "Here's the situation, and here's this gentleman that I know. He's sleeping at my house this week. He's offering this offering." And my son says, "Well, let me look that up." So he looks up the whyagain.com. At that time, it was so long ago it wasn't .org. And he
Mm.
looks it up, and he comes back to me and he says, "The hell with that. He talks about God. I'm not doing that."
Oh, jeez.
And literally slammed the door on an option that
Mm.
could have helped him avoid more jail time.
Mm.
Right? For me, this is that real life experience that I have put in the bottom line observations as observation number 3. I can't make anyone do anything they don't want to do. And there it was, right in my face.
Mm-hmm.
And because I've been doing this kind of work long enough and I had the wonderful parents that I had, I was able to recognize that. And I didn't berate him over it. I didn't pressure him. I just said, okay, offer is still open, but I can't force you. So he ended up rejecting that offer. And, you know, it, it meant he had to do jail time.
Mm.
And who knows? Well, I don't have the access to the creator's mind to know maybe that was the absolute best thing in the world for him,
Yeah.
right? And maybe he wouldn't have made the progress that he's made in his life and turned his life around if he hadn't had to face the harsh reality of those consequences for the
Mm-hmm.
behavior he chose before that.
Yeah. That's a good story, Dr. Tim.
Well, it's the same story here, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not talking about your grandson. I'm talking about you. I'm offering you the chance to do a worksheet and you're deflecting.
I
And
am
yet,
not.
eh, oh, really?
Yeah. I'll
Okay,
do
well
it.
then, all right. I have the worksheet in front of me. It's a 7-step from 2017 version 3.
Oh, you mean doing it right now? Okay. I'll go print it out. I have my computer up. Tell me, tell me again which one. 7-step?
Yeah, I
I've
have a
got.
7-step. It's one of the more recent 7 steps, although they keep changing little bits here and there. But
I know, and so it's hard to know which is
this is
which.
mine is, 2017-3.
Oh, 5-step, 6-step Walzak. Keep going down.
This
Haverstick 7.
this is the
Cave.
reality management worksheet or the wake up sheet, whatever you want to call it.
Okay, I'm opening something. Oh, is that the one that looks like the IRS thing
Yeah,
you fill out?
yeah.
Okay.
It has a block of 2.5, 3 inches at the bottom. It's nothing but glossary of terms, and
Okay. I got it. I'll print it.
it has the right hand column that has things in it like if they're the one with the problem, why am I the one with the pain? And,
All right. Okay. I haven't used that one in quite a while. So it's printing now.
well, I use it in my support groups and mostly on the internet show here because it's available absolutely free. It's very similar to what you'll find if you go to the whyagain.org and click on the 2 words that say start here
Mm.
in the upper left hand corner. And it's, like, and then click on the current version of the 7-step worksheet. This is whatever might be different. This is
Yeah.
just a few words away from
Okay. Good.
the most
All
current
right.
one out there.
Okay. I've got the clipboard. I've got my pencil. I've got it printed. All right. Date 3/15 or 14?
It's
14.
14. It's Pi Day.
Pi Day. Okay.
3.1417, whatever.
Oh, okay. All right, Dr. Tim.
So I, Susan, who am love,
Mm-hmm.
and the premise of this worksheet is that my human life, my very being, is love. And the point of this worksheet is an internal process to remove anything that's like fear and hostility and return me to the ability to have this direct experience of my true nature 24/7, 365. So I, Susan, who am love, am feeling what emotion would you choose for this worksheet?
Fear.
Okay. And on a scale of 0 to 10, how strong would you say that fear is?
8,
Okay.
9, whatever, somewhere
All right.
up there.
Well, we'll give it an 8. That's the
All
first
right.
thing you said. And then the worksheet reminds me that hostility and fear come from internal corrupt data, and they indicate my use of sustained incoherence to build this picture in my mind. And my denial causes my mind to displace my experience of myself as love, and it shows me a picture that my emotions are caused by someone
Charlie.
or something outside of me. And in this case, it's grandson, right? So it's Charlie. And you know, for what comes after that, I would just say, Charlie, suffering from OCD.
All right, that's good.
All right, and then breathe and soften, and the worksheet reminds me that if I'm in pain, my thinking is in error.
Mm-hmm.
So I breathe into that. You know, the benefit of these longer worksheets is it has all of these reminders, and every time I
Yeah.
read them and I slow down and I read that thought, it helps remove some of the conditioning of my culture and my family, which has me believing somebody or something outside of me is causing my upset.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I'm just
Yeah.
reading that, hey, if I'm in pain, my thinking is in error.
Right.
And I breathe and I soften. And step 1D asks me, what is the thought I'm using to create this emotion? Because only my thoughts and the mind energy I pour into my thoughts create my upset. So
So
what's the thought I'm using? We ran through a few of them before. Which one are you going to choose for this worksheet?
Charlie's making himself sick, ruining his life, can't enjoy life, is just miserable. I mean, there are a lot of them.
So I'm just putting the first two you wrote there, or you said there. He's making himself sick and ruining his life.
Okay.
Take a breath, or
Okay.
two, and slow the
All right.
exhale down. And then point E on this worksheet asks, what's the punishment thought, if you have any punishment thoughts for Charlie?
No.
So there's no part of you that wants him to just wake up and see the truth and do what you're telling him to?
No,
There's no
I
no
don't
no
think
part
so.
of you that wants to shake him and yell at him and get some sense into him?
No, I wouldn't get it that. I wouldn't do it that way.
Okay, so I'm just asking you to explore
No.
this, because in these worksheets, what we understand is the more honest we can be about our punishment thoughts, the more
Mm-hmm.
benefit we get from the worksheets. And there are those
I
of us
w-
who say, oh, no, I'm a very good grandmother. I would never have a thought
no,
of
I would
anger
have.
toward my grandson.
I would so have anger if it were there. I have never. I don't think I feel any. I'll think about it. I'll put a question mark. But
All right, all right. And then do you have a punishment thought for yourself in this situation as you're having the conclusion that you're powerless to help him?
I did something wrong
All
in
right, all
raising
right.
my son, who would raise a boy who was so afraid of his father, for one thing.
Okay, so here is I just put the two words, my fault. All
Okay.
right. That's because there's very little space on the worksheet for that. But if
Right.
you wanted to, you could flip it over on the back and write a little bit more about how, it's my fault because I didn't do a good enough job raising my kids, and he's getting the
Okay.
downhill negative effects of my errors in how I raised my kids. And you
Hmm.
could use a little bit, but you don't need to. So then take a nice deep breath, and point two
Okay.
asks me to choose to honor truth and willingly face and process out all of the dis-ease producing energies for and from all of my relations and my generations.
Mm. Okay.
And breathe into that. And then it
Yeah, it's
asks
big.
me to be willing to go through the physical, mental, and emotional symptoms of healing.
Hmm.
And those may not be pleasant. There might be physical symptoms, there might be negative emotions, there might be fatigue, there
Mm.
might be confusion, and I need to be willing to go through those rather than to run to a drug of choice, or even the drug of busyness, which is
Yeah.
probably the most popular in this culture, second only maybe to rage.
Yeah.
And then breathe into that, and then there's a little box that says, I release and surrender myself and my emotion of fear and the object of attention, Charlie, and my story that he's suffering from OCD, and my thoughts that he's making himself sick and ruining his life, and my punishment thought for myself to blame myself.
Yeah.
And I'm going to
Okay.
surrender all of that to love and just
Okay.
breathe.
Mm. Okay.
And then I move on to the right-hand side of the worksheet says, remember, if they're the one with the problem, why am I the one with the pain? So this
Mm.
is just a reminder that it's all an inside job. And,
Yeah.
and I benefit every time I remind myself of that. So it's all an inside job. And then the next thing it says is I cancel my need to be right, and I cancel my need to make up another story out of these brain cells to hallucinate or convince myself that my fear and hostility based story, that my reality is true. I'm just going to cancel the need to be right first time
Mm-hmm.
through, breathe and soften. And then the third step asks me to be clear about what's my desire, what's the exact goal that I think needs to happen for this to get better.
His repetitive, anxious thoughts disappear.
Okay? And specifically, that's about his thoughts, but the goal should be about him since he's the target here. So the goal would probably be something like you want him to accept your help or be willing to try the worksheets or, you
My
know,
first thought is just that I want him to be happy, enjoy his life. I'm not sure the worksheets, since he's the way he is, whether the worksheets would help. I just want him to feel better.
okay. So how about just you want him to accept help so he can feel better and enjoy his life?
I don't even
You
know
don't
if
think,
the accepting help part, I just want him to be better, to be healed.
all right, so your goal for Charlie is for him to be healed so he can enjoy his life, right?
Yep.
Okay. Are you smiling? Are you breathing? What's happening?
I'm breathing.
Okay. So you haven't gotten to the smile yet, but we'll see. So now the goal is that Charlie be healed so he can enjoy his life. Breathe and
Mm.
soften. And then step 4 is a little meditation we ask people to do. It says, I'm going to choose love, which is my essence. And when I do that, it stirs the love in everyone involved. And there's a little check mark box there. Put your check mark in there. But we ask people to breathe and soften and step back away from the worksheet. And if you're so inclined, close your eyes, put your hand over your heart space, and take a few deep breaths into some of the most loving, happy, strong, safe memories you have from either your recent or distant past. Joy, contentment, strength,
Mm.
bliss, safety. Find a memory that helps you shift the energy in your heart space to that loving, compassionate, joyful energy. And breathe into it until you strengthen it and feel the shift in your heart. You feel the energy in your body shift to that more joyful, relaxed, calm space. And stay with it with a nice calming breath until you feel that shift, and let me know when you've gotten a shift. Keep the breath moving.
I don't know if I can get there.
Well,
Mm.
we know you can. We know you've been there before. And in order to do that, you're going to have to shift the focus of your thoughts away from Charlie and you it being his fault and these other things, and shift it over to an experience you've had in your life where there was accomplishment, there was warmth, there was loving connection with another person or a cat. breathe into one of those memories. Until you feel that shift in your heart space.
There's so much nervous energy floating around.
Okay, so think about one of your cats. Think about what would happen if your cat came and jumped up on your lap right now.
Mm-hmm. That's easy to think of.
And then started, playfully batting around your pen as you're trying to write on the worksheet process.
Okay.
Or one of the funniest memories you have of being a pet owner where a cat or a puppy lit up your life with its activities and humor and love.
Okay, I think I can sort of get one foot in there. Is that enough?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we breathe and soften and we move on to step 5 where it says, when I'm upset, my perception is built out of corrupt data and is driven by my goal. In this case, my goal for my grandson to be healed so he can enjoy his life. And it's a very limiting picture constructed from a max of 9 bits of data while 10,000 of my brain cells firing and probably 20 trillion bits of data are hitting my senses. And so by canceling that goal, part of my mind that just keeps producing the same picture or the same pained picture collapses,
Mm-hmm.
and it gives me direct contact with what's been denied and dissociated from different parts of my mind.
Mm.
And that part of my mind, whenever it denies and dissociates things, it projects and blames others for its content. So I want to take responsibility for what my mind is doing, for what my thoughts can create, and I want to keep love conscious, active, and present. And I'm going to choose to collapse my mind's lies or hallucinations by willingly canceling my goal for my grandson to be healed so he can enjoy his life. So breathe into that and temporarily cancel that goal, knowing you can reset it later.
Mm-hmm.
It has nothing to do with wishing anything other than to find the hidden part of your own mind. Just breathe into that and cancel the goal for him to be healed so he can enjoy life. And soften and breathe. Got it?
I think so.
Did you write that in there? And then the next part of that step 5 says, I'm going to invite someone other than my conscious logical mind. I'm going to invite God, light, love, Ruka Dakucha, Holy Spirit, my great-grandfather, whatever. I'm going to invite something other than my conscious logical mind. So who are you going to invite to assist you here?
Jesus.
All right, so I invite Jesus to incline me toward healing, to restore me to my awareness of my newborn essence as love, to heal my denial about how I'm the one creating this, because my mind keeps telling me I'm only feeling this way because of the pain my grandson's feeling. And it's going to heal my capacity to generate this emotion of fear. I'm asking for help with all of that.
Yeah.
And I'm asking that Jesus help me open a direct conscious relationship with and gently remove whatever's been denied, dissociated, and then projected out of my carbon-based memory into my image of my grandson. And then I just want to breathe and soften. I'm going to go into another little meditation. I'm going to suggest that you keep your eyes closed and breathe in. Maybe put your hand over your heart space. And just silently inside your own mind, say what I'm going to say out loud.
Okay.
I cancel my need to be right about anyone or anything. I cancel my need for anyone or anything to change, including myself. I specifically cancel my goal in this worksheet for my grandson to be healed so that he can enjoy his life. I put my conscious logical mind on the shelf for now, and I ask to be shown the hidden part of my own mind that's actually creating this upset. And then I want to just breathe and soften. and put myself in the most open, allowing space I can, gently repeating that I cancel my need to be right, and I cancel my need for anyone or anything to change. And I ask to be shown the hidden part of my mind. And then I just trust that whatever comes into my awareness is part of what I need to see to begin to heal here and move forward. It's all old stuff. It can't hurt me any more than it already has. If it's coming to my awareness right now, it's just from nerves firing in my brain cells. So I'm going to breathe and soften and allow it to wash over me so I can study it up close. I'm going to be willing to open up any old beliefs or conclusions so they can get questioned anew and reevaluated. I'm going to trust that if I get a flash to an earlier time in my life when I was stuck and miserable and wouldn't heal, that I go there and see what it has to offer me. I notice how old I was, where I was, who else was there, and what's happening. And I breathe and I soften and I just allow as I gently repeat, I cancel my need to be right, and I ask to be shown the hidden part of my own mind that's actually creating this fear in this worksheet. And then just breathe and soften and stay with it until you feel something shift or fade. That's one option. Or you get a powerful insight about other times in your life where you were stuck focusing on things you couldn't have control over and you couldn't heal people that were in pain. Or you realize that your mind is just going to be spinning and go nowhere. And when one of those three things happens, take one of those nice, deep, cleansing breaths where you hold it at the top and you slow the exhale down. And scan your body and notice what you feel most in terms of a strong physical sensation or an emotion. Just breathe and soften until you're ready to wrap this up and move to the next phase. But breathe, soften, and allow.
Sad.
Okay.
Just sad.
Okay. Really good. So just that's what you put in 6A. That you put the word sadness. And you might make a note about where you feel it in your body and how strong it is.
Mm.
And then
Okay.
you might make some notes about what happened when you did that release. Did you flash on earlier times in your life where you had to deal with people you loved and cared about and they weren't healing and they were in pain and you couldn't fix it? Or did you focus on a different interaction in your own life where you were stuck and couldn't break out of it? Just breathe and soften. But if you had those kinds of insights, this is the time to make notes about them before they float away.
Yeah. A memory of my mother crying, facing away from us in the downstairs bathroom. We were small and we didn't know what the matter was, and she didn't want to share anything with us or explain. And she didn't want us to see her that way. But she was pretty much out of control for a while, and nobody ever talked about it. That's interesting because the other day we didn't talk about her running away either. So, helpless. Okay. Sadness, helplessness, and ignorance of what's going on.
Perfect. So make notes about that. I'm making notes on this worksheet here that I'm processing with you on. And so your sadness, your helplessness, you're not knowing what's going on, and you can guess at what age you were when that was happening?
First grade, so probably 6.
All right, 6 or 7 years old. So just have that, in your notes,
Yeah.
and you can get a sense of how intense and unruly and unmanageable our emotions are at times like that when we're that
Yeah.
young.
Right.
Especially when we don't have an adult there who's comforting us and coaching us through that experience of emotions and ways to label them and process them.
Right.
Okay. So then the next part of the worksheet says, so I ask to be shown a time when I've not fulfilled this goal of myself being healed so I can enjoy my own life. And that's just what I would write there. I ask to be shown times when I have failed to be healed so that I could enjoy my own life.
Well, I'm doing it right now.
Yep. And just write that down and make that statement and kind of throw it open to Spirit to give you give Spirit permission to nudge you during those times where your vision is clouded and you avoid stepping into joy or your true nature is love, and you stay focused on these negative thoughts that are fear-based, and you prevent yourself from enjoying life. And then just breathe. And if a time floods back into your memory, like, oh boy, there was a period of about a year and a half where I was stuck in depression, or I fretted over everything, and I was inconsolable in my 20s, or whatever it was, if that comes up, then make a note about it. And maybe you do some tapping on that, or maybe you can do another worksheet on that in a future date.
Yeah. The words came to my mind. How dare you feel good and enjoy life when I'm so miserable?
Perfect.
I don't know who's talking.
I would flip the page over and I would write that quote. How dare you enjoy life when I'm so miserable?
Mm.
And if your words were slightly different, use your words.
No, that was good.
I would make that note on the back of that worksheet. And maybe as you read that or you let it simmer in you, you remember who said that or where you would have had an idea like that come into your awareness.
My mother would have said it.
Okay.
I mean, she wouldn't have said it, but she would have thought it. And there's another memory, too, of little Charlie. I can't even remember it. I can't remember who said what to whom. But somebody bawled somebody out. Somebody was carrying a heavy load, and somebody else said, why don't you help me? And the first person couldn't. But I don't know whether that was Charlie holding the load and I bawled him out, or whether it was the other way around. Maybe it doesn't even matter, but there was an imbalance there and an expectation. I'll have to spend some time with that because I can't dredge it up right now. It's just something coming up.
All right. So now let's just take a breath and let's go to this little circle in the draw your feelings box where it says, I commit to love, I commit to living a human life. And if you do that, put a check mark in that box and take a breath. And then it says, to help achieve this, I'm going to do a mass canceling of all the times I've ever wanted anybody to be healed so they could enjoy life.
So that I could enjoy life too. Yeah.
And so I'd put my initials in there, Susan Bingham. I would put the initials of Charlie. I would put the initials of my mother. And anybody else you could think of. The Michael who's used to live in your house and is now out, I'd put those initials there. And as you do that and you breathe and soften, if dynamics flood up or specific memories flood up, those might be really good targets for future worksheets. And then breathe and soften.
Basically, it's about letting people do what they do and be who they are on their own without any input or intervention from me, because I can't do anything except care for them without trying to fix anything.
Okay. Good thoughts, good notes to make. Then step 7 in the worksheet says, a principle of the universe is that by giving, I first get the original. So I'm going to choose gratitude for this opportunity to heal. I'm going to choose truth and perfect love. And I'm going to structure a loving goal. What's a loving goal based on this particular goal in this worksheet? And I would recommend, because I do this in the worksheets that we do in the support group and on the internet show, I recommend that you keep this goal time limited and specific so you can know at the end of today or tomorrow if you've accomplished it or not. And if you haven't, you cancel it or you move it back into plans or intentions so you don't generate stress that can't be resolved. Right?
Okay.
So by making it time limited and specific, in this case, I'd say a round of tapping or another worksheet or two on the things that you thought about.
Yeah.
Like this phrase from your mom, how dare you enjoy life while I'm so miserable? Or about that memory you have of your mom crying and inconsolable and trying to hide from you rather than explain to you what was going on or comfort you in any way, letting you know it's all going to be okay. And maybe you do the worksheet as though you were that 6 or 7-year-old in that situation.
Yeah. Impenetrable. The pain is impenetrable. It's not accessible to help from outside. They have to do it themselves.
Okay, so how about we give you the goal of having 2 worksheets
Okay.
based on the thoughts that came up from this worksheet.
Okay.
One on the statement by mom, how dare you be happy when I'm so miserable, and one on you as the 6 or 7-year-old watching your mom crying and inconsolable.
Okay.
And then take a breath and scan your body and notice what your upset level is now.
Well, it's about a 4.
All right, and then you get to decide if you would say going from an 8 to a 4, if you would mark that a successful worksheet.
It needs more work, but it's successful.
There you go.
Thank you, Dr. Tim. I know it's right up at the hour, boy.
Well, and thank you, because that's a gift to yourself and to anybody listening. And whether your mind wants you to believe it or not, probably far more beneficial for your grandson than just about anything you could have done in this past hour.
Wouldn't that be something?
No, isn't that something?
Okay.
It's just the truth that we can only... Listen, Course in Miracles says, when you heal, you are never healed alone.
Yeah.
You do a piece of healing work, it benefits you and everybody else.
May it be so.
Yep. All right. Well, I thank you for the time. I will remind everyone that we'll end this hour, and Michael and Jeannie would start their live show soon after. So please open up your Needle app again and join that hour. I will remind us all that we come from love. We're made of the stuff that we call our love.